They could be anywhere. Your charming coworker who always knows the right thing to say. That magnetic new friend who seems to get you instantly. Even someone you share your home with, your bed with, your heart with. On the surface, they're confident, engaging, and often disarmingly attractive. But behind that polished smile, a predator. Someone who studies you the way a hunter studies prey, learning your patterns, your weaknesses, your hopes, until they know exactly how to slip past your defenses. Here's the unsettling truth. Experts estimate that about 1% of the population has psychopathic traits. That means the odds are high you've already met one. You may be working with one, or worse, loving one, and unless you know exactly what to look for, you'll stay under their influence, drained of energy, questioning your own reality, while they move on to their next target without a shred of guilt. If you've ever felt like you were being pulled into a relationship that seemed perfect at first, too perfect, but slowly started to feel wrong, this video is for you. We're going to break down 7 unmistakable signs you're dealing with a psychopath. These aren't dry textbook definitions. These are real-world red flags, the kind that show up in everyday interactions that you might be living through right now, and most importantly, how to recognize them before they cost you years of your life. Because here's the thing, psychopaths don't show up looking like villains in a movie. They don't walk in with flashing warning signs. They blend in. They look like friends, lovers, colleagues, even family. And the damage they do isn't always obvious. At first, it's slow, calculated, and targeted. You might think, but I'd know if someone was manipulating me. The truth? Most people don't. Psychopaths are emotional tacticians. They know how to mirror your values, echo your dreams, and adapt to your vulnerabilities. They can make you feel seen, chosen, and safe, only to flip the switch the moment you stop giving them what they want. And here's why it matters. Without the ability to spot these patterns, you're left vulnerable to gaslighting, emotional exploitation, and psychological harm that can take years to recover from. Over the next few minutes, we'll walk through each of these 7 signs, how they show up, why they work, and the mental tools you need to protect yourself. You'll hear examples that might sound uncomfortably familiar, situations that could have come straight from your own life. But this isn't just about fear, it's about clarity. It's about arming yourself with knowledge so that when you see the signs, you can act, not react. We'll also weave in Stoic philosophy, an ancient but incredibly practical mindset that helps you stay grounded no matter how intense the charm or chaos becomes. The Stoics understood something vital. You can't control who other people are, but you can control your response. That's the key here. Not trying to change the psychopath, not trying to beat them at their own game, but learning how to recognize the game and walk away before it costs you more than you can afford to lose. Think of this video as both a map and a mirror. The map will guide you through the terrain of manipulative behavior so you know where the traps are. The mirror will help you spot the moments when your own instincts are waving a red flag, those gut feelings that something's off, even when you can't explain why. So, whether you've been caught in a toxic friendship, a draining workplace relationship, or a romance that left you wondering how you lost yourself, pay close attention. These signs can save you from months, even years, of confusion, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. Here's what we'll cover. The charm offensive that isn't love, it's bait. The lies so convincing you start doubting your own memory. The chilling absence of empathy, hidden behind a mask of fake concern. The way they drain your resources, money, time, energy without a trace of guilt. The chaos they create and blame you for. The possessiveness they disguise as care. And the victim stories they spin to keep you hooked. By the end, you'll know exactly what to look for, how to trust your instincts again, and how to respond with the calm, deliberate strength of a stoic someone who refuses to let another person's dysfunction hijack their peace. So, let's start. Because the sooner you can spot the signs, the sooner you can take your life back. Part 1. Surface charm and initial manipulation. It usually starts like a scene from a movie. They look you in the eyes like you're the only person in the world. They remember the little things, your favorite coffee order, the exact way you laugh at bad jokes, the story about your childhood dog. They finish your sentences, agree with all your opinions, and seem to get you in a way no one ever has. You might think, wow, this person was meant for me. That's not an accident. That's love bombing, an intentional flood of affection, attention, and agreement designed to hook you quickly. It's not about love, it's about speed. The faster they can create an intense bond, the less time you have to notice the cracks in their mask. But here's the part most people miss. This isn't just over-the-top romance, it's reconnaissance. A psychopath, or anyone skilled in manipulation, treats those early conversations like research interviews. Every story you tell, every insecurity you reveal, every dream you share goes into their mental file. And one day, they'll use it. Think about it. They're not just memorizing your favorite dessert because they care. They're memorizing it because it makes you feel special. And when you feel special, you lower your guard. They're taking note of your past heartbreaks, not to comfort you, but to know exactly which buttons to push later. Here's how the shift happens. In the beginning, everything is warm texts, first thing in the morning, late night calls, constant compliments. But the moment you set a boundary, maybe you say you need some space, or you won't cancel plans for them, the temperature drops. Suddenly, the warmth turns cold. The sweet messages dry up. The person who once hung on your every word now acts distant, even irritated. This is not random moodiness. This is emotional whiplash, and it's deliberate. By swinging between extreme affection and withdrawal, they keep you off balance. How do I get the good version of them back? And just like that, you're not making decisions from a place of strength, you're reacting to their behavior. The Stoics had a warning for this kind of trap. They taught that the first step toward freedom is learning to separate appearance from reality. As Epictetus said, we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. The rush of early connection can feel real, but feelings alone don't prove truth. Here's the hard truth. Genuine connection builds over time. It doesn't need to rush. It doesn't demand you open every door of your life in the first week. If someone is moving fast too fast, ask yourself why. What's the hurry? Who benefits from skipping the natural process of getting to know each other? If you recognize this pattern, if you felt that dizzying high followed by a sudden freeze, slow down, step back, observe. Don't rush to label it love or destiny. Pay attention to whether their kindness holds steady when you say no, or whether it disappears the moment you stop playing along. The Stoic approach here is powerful. Observe without reacting. Don't let the flattery or the coldness dictate your emotions. Test the consistency. Real character shows when you set a limit. Guard your pace. If they're truly right for you, they won't mind if things take time. Remember, manipulation often hides in the things that feel the best at first. And when someone tries to rush you into deep trust before it's earned, it's not romance. It's strategy. The most dangerous predators don't chase you with threats, they lure you with comfort. And the moment you step inside the trap, that comfort turns into control. So the next time you meet someone who seems too perfect, don't just ask, do they like me? Ask, why are they moving so fast? And what do they stand to gain if I follow? Because when it comes to protecting your mind and your peace, the first red flag is often wrapped in roses. Part 2. Gaslighting and reality twisting. Dusk. If love bombing is the hook, gaslighting is the chain. It starts small. They forget things you clearly remember. They deny making promises, even when you can almost quote their words. They twist past conversations so skillfully that you start wondering if your memory is failing you. Gaslighting is psychological warfare disguised as casual conversation. The goal isn't just to win an argument, it's to make you question your own reality. Once you start doubting your own judgment, you're far easier to control. Picture this. You confront them about a hurtful comment they made in front of friends. They smile and say, "Wow, you're really sensitive. I was just joking, everyone laughed except you." Suddenly, the focus isn't on their behavior. It's on your flawed reaction, and just like that, you're the problem. This tactic works because it plays on a universal human fear, the fear of being wrong. No one likes to think their perception is unreliable. And so, instead of holding the manipulator accountable, you start holding yourself under a microscope. Maybe I misheard, maybe I overreacted. Over time, this creates a dangerous loop. The more you doubt yourself, the more you rely on them to interpret reality for you. And that's exactly what they want, because if they control the narrative, they control you. Here's the thing the Stoics understood. Truth doesn't change because someone denies it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. For I seek the truth, which never harmed anyone. The harm is to persist in self-deception." A manipulator flips this on its head. They seek to harm by planting self-deception in you. The Stoic defense against gaslighting is twofold. Anchor yourself to objective facts. Keep records if you need to. Messages, dates, receipts. It's not about obsessing over proof. It's about protecting your sanity. Trust your senses and your reason. If something felt wrong, it probably was. Don't outsource your moral compass to someone whose actions repeatedly undermine your trust. One practical tip: when you feel that familiar fog of doubt, pause and ask, if I told this story to a neutral friend, would they see it the same way I do? That outside perspective, real or imagined, can break the manipulator's spell. I've seen gaslighting turn confident, capable people into hesitant, self-blaming shells of themselves. And the scariest part? They didn't even realize it was happening until much later. That's why recognizing it early is critical. Remember, disagreements are normal, but if every disagreement leaves you feeling confused, guilty, or like you need to apologize for even bringing it up, that's not a disagreement, it's a distortion. Gaslighting isn't just lying, it's rewriting your reality until you start living in theirs. And once you're living in their version of the world, you're no longer free. The Stoic way is to stand firm in what you've seen, heard, and felt, even when someone else tries to blur the edges. They can debate your opinion, but they don't get to erase your reality. Because in the end, your perception is the lens through which you live your entire life. Guard it, protect it, and never let anyone convince you that you didn't see what you saw or feel what you felt. Part 3. Lack of empathy and fake emotions. There's a certain kind of coldness you can't quite put your finger on. On the surface, they smile in all the right places, nod at the right moments, and even say the words you'd expect from someone who cares. But deep down, you feel it, something is missing. That something is genuine empathy. A true psychopath or even a highly manipulative person can recognize emotions, even mimic them convincingly. They know the correct facial expressions, the right tone of voice, and the socially acceptable words to say when you're upset. But they don't actually feel those emotions. They're acting, and the performance has one goal: to blend in until it's time to use your trust against you. Here's how you spot it. Imagine you've just gone through something devastating: a loss, a betrayal, a personal failure. A normal empathetic person will feel with you. Their eyes might water, their voice might soften, their whole body language will shift to support you. A manipulator, however, will give you what I call the scripted sympathy. They may quickly pivot the conversation back to themselves, or worse, they'll seem slightly irritated that your pain is taking up their time. The dangerous part? Because they can imitate empathy, it's easy to believe they care. In fact, in the early stages of knowing them, you might even think they're unusually attentive, always listening, always remembering. But here's the twist. The more you share, the more ammunition you're giving them. And this is where it turns sinister. That deep fear you confessed at 2 a.m., they'll throw it back at you during an argument. That painful childhood memory you trusted them with, they'll use it as a weapon when they want to break your confidence. Psychopaths don't see people as people. They see them as tools, useful or useless. If you serve their goals, you're valuable. If you don't, you're discarded without hesitation. From a Stoic perspective, the trap here is that we often fall in love with someone's potential instead of accepting their reality. We tell ourselves, maybe they just have trouble expressing feelings. Maybe if I love them enough, they'll open up. But Stoicism warns against this self-deception. As Marcus Aurelius put it, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. The same applies in reverse. If their actions don't show empathy, don't invent it in your mind. So how do you protect yourself? Watch their behavior when you're vulnerable. Do they support you, or do they seem annoyed? Do they keep your confidence, or do they weaponize it later? Look for consistency. Real empathy doesn't appear only when it benefits them. It's present in the mundane, everyday moments. Detach from the fantasy. Don't project kindness onto someone whose actions consistently prove otherwise. A personal tip: when you're sharing something deeply personal, give it time. See how they handle smaller pieces of vulnerability before offering more. People who truly care will treat your small truths with as much respect as your big ones. Manipulators, on the other hand, will store every detail like bullets in a chamber. The Stoic way is simple but powerful. Accept what is in front of you. If someone's care feels performative, it probably island, and no amount of hoping, wishing, or loving will plant empathy in a heart that doesn't have it. Because in the end, trust isn't built on how well someone acts when the lights are on. It's built on what they do when there's no audience, no reward, just you, your truth, and their choice to honor it or exploit it. Part 4. Parasitic lifestyle and systematic exploitation. Some people don't just take advantage of a moment, they build their entire existence around taking from others. At first, they present themselves as deeply impressed by you. They might say things like, "I've never met anyone like you. You're so generous, so inspiring." They put you on a pedestal, not because they truly admire you, but because it's easier to reach into your pockets in your life when you feel flattered and safe. The pattern is as old as human nature itself. Idealize, to exploit, to devalue, to discard. It begins with the idealization phase, where you feel like the most valued person in their world. They invest just enough charm, attention, and compliments to earn your trust. Once you let them in, the exploitation begins. Suddenly, they need help with rent, just this once. They borrow your car. They lean on you for emotional support during crises that somehow never end. You start covering for them, lending them money, rearranging your schedule to meet their needs. And all the while, they're draining your time, energy, and resources like a slow leak you don't notice until the tank is empty. Here's the twist. Once they've extracted enough, whether it's financial help, emotional labor, social connections, they begin to devalue you. The gratitude fades, the tone shifts. You go from being amazing to difficult, from the only one who understands to too demanding. Then, often without warning, you think it's over, until you get a text weeks or months later, just checking in. But that message isn't about missing you, it's about seeing if the door is still open. This is what I call the reserve hook, keeping a thin line of contact so they can reel you back in whenever they need another hit of your generosity. Who do they target? People with soft hearts, people going through a vulnerable season, grieving, lonely, fresh out of a breakup, people who believe the best in others, even when the evidence says otherwise. From a Stoic perspective, this is not an accident. This isn't just how they are, it's a deliberate survival strategy. And that's the danger. You can't negotiate your way into fair treatment with someone who sees you as a resource rather than a person. The Stoic defense here comes down to one thing: boundaries over approval. But Seneca warned, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Part of proving yourself is learning when to say no. 3 ways to spot and stop this dynamic before it consumes you. Track the balance. Relationships are never perfectly 50/50 all the time. But if you notice you're always the one giving money, time, energy, and they're always the one receiving, that's a red flag. Watch the response to your no. A healthy person may be disappointed, but they'll respect it. A parasite will guilt trip, sulk, or threaten to leave. Ask yourself, would they still be here if I had nothing to offer? It's a sobering question, but one that can cut through the fog of emotional attachment. Here's the hardest part. Walking away will feel selfish at first, especially if you're the kind of person who prides yourself on loyalty. But loyalty without boundaries isn't virtue, it's a liability. And manipulators are masters at making you feel like cutting them off is an act of cruelty, when in reality, it's an act of survival. In the Stoic view, protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. You can't live a virtuous life if your energy is constantly being siphoned off by someone who contributes nothing in return. The ancient Stoics believed in helping others, yes, but never at the cost of your own reason, dignity, or ability to live according to your principles. So if you recognize this pattern in someone close to you, remember, you are not their lifeline, their bank account, or their permanent emotional dumping ground. You are a person with finite resources and infinite potential, and the more you allow them to drain you, the less of yourself you'll have left to live that potential out. And sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do for them and for yourself is to cut the line entirely. Part 5, impulsiveness and irresponsibility. Some people live in a constant state of chaos, not because life is uniquely unfair to them, but because they create the storm themselves. If you've ever had someone in your life who seems to always be going through something, you know what I mean. One week they're in love, the next they're in a screaming match. One month they're flush with cash, the next they're asking to borrow money. Every plan with them feels like a gamble, because at any moment, something or someone will come up. At first, you might feel sympathy. Life is hard. Everyone hits rough patches. But here's the pattern. This chaos never ends, because they have no intention of ending it. They dodge responsibility for the messes they make, play the victim when things fall apart, and when confronted, they shift the blame to anyone but themselves. You'll hear lines like, "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. If people didn't treat me this way, I wouldn't act like this." Or the classic, "It's not my fault, it's just how life island." The truth, it's not life, it's them. They don't learn from mistakes, because mistakes are always someone else's fault. They don't feel guilt, because guilt would require self-reflection. And without self-reflection, the same problems will repeat again and again and again. Their impulsiveness fuels the chaos. They chase short-term thrills, overspending, reckless relationships, quitting jobs on a whim without considering the long-term cost. And when those choices blow up, they vanish, explode in anger, or suddenly change their story to avoid being cornered by the truth. From a Stoic perspective, this is where you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Their chaos is not your responsibility. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But if you're constantly reacting to someone else's poor decisions, you're not steering your own life. You're clinging to a raft in their storm. Here are 3 signs you might be trapped in the wake of someone like this. You're constantly in damage control. Instead of moving forward in your own life, you're cleaning up their messes, financial, emotional, or social. You feel drained but guilty for stepping back. They've convinced you that without your help, they'll fall apart. The truth? They'll fall apart anyway, but at least you won't go down with them. You've started lowering your standards. You expect last-minute cancellations, angry outbursts, or erratic behavior because that's just how they are. So how do you break free? First, stop accepting chaos as normal. The longer you normalize it, the more you'll adapt to dysfunction and mistake it for loyalty. Loyalty doesn't mean enabling someone's self-destruction at your expense. Second, protect your emotional and logistical boundaries. That means saying no without guilt, refusing to cover for them, and not letting their emergencies override your plans unless it's truly life or death. Third, detach from their narrative. They will try to pull you into the role of rescuer or co-victim, but you are neither. You are an independent person with your own path, and your peace is worth more than their temporary approval. If you struggle with this, remember, the Stoics taught that peace of mind comes from focusing only on what is within your control. You can't control their decisions, their reactions, or their refusal to take responsibility, but you can control how much access they have to your time, your energy, and your life. And here's the hard truth. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step out of the storm entirely. Not to punish them, not to prove a point, but to preserve your own clarity and stability. Because the more you stand in someone else's chaos, the more you risk forgetting what peace even feels like. Sign #6, extreme jealousy and possessiveness. Let's talk about a behavior that can feel flattering in the very beginning, but over time turns into a cage. Extreme jealousy and possessiveness. At first, it might come disguised as care. Text me when you get home. I just want to make sure you're safe. Or send me a quick picture so I know you're okay. Sounds sweet, right? But here's the thing, when those requests become demands, when checking in becomes constant surveillance, you're no longer being loved, you're being monitored. A psychopath, or anyone with controlling tendencies, uses jealousy as a tool. They'll frame it as protection, but the real goal is control. They want to know where you are, who you're with, and what you're doing at all times. Because in their mind, your life is not entirely yours. It belongs to them. Look for patterns, not moments. A genuine person will share their story, but still take responsibility for their actions. A manipulator will use their story every time they're held accountable. Watch what happens after forgiveness. Do they change their behavior, or do they return to the same harmful habits, expecting another get-out-of-jail-free card? Pay attention to timing. If the sad story always appears right after you set a boundary or bring up a problem, it's probably not coincidence. From a Stoic and modern psychology standpoint, your empathy needs boundaries. Compassion without discernment is like an open vault. It invites anyone to take what they want. Here's how to respond without becoming cold or cruel. Acknowledge their pain without excusing their actions. I'm sorry you went through that. It doesn't make what happened here okay. Redirect the conversation to the present. I hear what you're saying, but I still need to talk about what happened yesterday. Hold the line, even when it's uncomfortable. Growth often means sitting with the discomfort of not rescuing someone from the consequences of their behavior. Remember, empathy is powerful, but so is clarity. You can care for someone's struggles while refusing to let them use those struggles as a permanent shield against accountability. The Stoic path teaches us that pity without wisdom weakens both sides. It enables the manipulator to remain stuck, and it drains you of the energy you need for your own life. So the next time someone's story pulls at your heartstrings, pause. Ask yourself, am I listening with compassion, or am I being steered away from the truth? One will lead to connection, the other will lead to control. And the sooner you can tell the difference, the stronger and freer you'll well. We've just walked through 7 clear, undeniable signs. The charm that feels too perfect at the start, masking calculated manipulation. The pathological lies that rewrite reality in their favor. The cold absence of empathy, paired with emotions that feel staged. The parasitic lifestyle that drains your time, energy, and resources. The reckless impulsivity and chronic avoidance of responsibility. the obsessive jealousy that disguises control as protection, and finally, the victim role used like a shield, designed to disarm your boundaries. These are not random flaws. They are patterns crafted, repeated, and perfected over time to pull people into a web where the manipulator always wins. And if you don't recognize them early, the cost is steep. Emotional exhaustion, financial loss, a slow erosion of your self-worth. The truth is, you can't control whether people like this exist. You can't change their core. You can't convince them to see the damage they cause because in many cases, they already know. But here's what you can control, and this is where Stoicism offers a lifeline: your perception, your boundaries, and your response. Epictetus said, "You may fetter my leg, but not even Zeus has the power to break my will." That's the mindset you must carry. You may not be able to stop someone from lying, manipulating, or playing the victim, but you can refuse to let their behavior define your reality or dismantle your peace. It starts with awareness. Awareness sharpens your instincts, turning that uneasy feeling in your gut into a clear signal. And when you have that signal, the Stoic approach is to step back, observe without emotional entanglement, and make deliberate decisions. Your boundaries are not walls to keep love out, they are gates that protect your values. The clearer they are, the less space there is for manipulation to creep in. When someone crosses them, you don't argue endlessly or try to win the fight. You act, you distance yourself, you reclaim your energy. And here's the part people rarely talk about. Walking away from toxic people is not just about survival, it's about expansion. Every time you cut off manipulation, you create room for healthier relationships, deeper self-respect, and more meaningful use of your time. Think of your life like a garden. If you leave weeds unchecked, they don't just grow, they choke everything else. These 7 signs, they are the weeds. And your job is not to study them forever or hope they turn into flowers. Your job is to recognize them quickly and remove them completely. So, if any of these signs sound familiar, don't dismiss them as just their personality or something I can fix. That's the trap. That's how you end up stuck in the same loop for years. Instead, trust your intuition. It's your first line of defense. Protect your inner peace, like it's the rarest currency in the world because it's island. The moment you allow someone to repeatedly drain it, you're bankrupting your own future. You owe it to yourself to live a life defined by clarity, self-respect, and freedom from manipulation. That means you may have to say goodbye without closure, walk away without explanation, and cut ties even when your heart still cares. In the end, the Stoic way is not about being cold, it's about being clear. Clear on who you are, what you value, and what you will not tolerate. And when you hold that line, you stop playing the game on their terms and start living on yours. So, remember, recognize the signs, guard your peace, and never hand over the pen that writes your story to someone who thrives on chaos.